the record button. So yeah, I always let everybody know. Obviously not a kid show. You're not writing kid comics, so I don't think there's any anything to worry about
Probably
there.
won't
But
be any kids watching. Yes.
yeah, man. So I mean, just say what you want, and like we're here to just have a good time chatting and hype up your new amazing comics that I was so stoked to read, and I'm so incredibly hyped to talk about. I just like. Man, I just want to talk Blackula for like hours. I won't keep you for hours, obviously, but it was so good, man.
I appreciate
But
that. Thank you.
do you have a you're kind of quiet. Do you have a volume you can turn up a little bit?
Uh, boy. How's that? That's the best
That's
I can
better.
do.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
better. All right. Okay, so I'll do a quick intro and then we just hit the ground running. Sound good?
Sounds good.
Awesome, man. All right, Buzz babies, it's your boy Blake, and we are back for another episode of Blake's Buzz. And this week I have a comic book rock star in the house. Have you read Philadelphia? Have you read Nita Hawes's Nightmare blog? Have you read the new Monarch or the new Blackula? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, I have the Rodney Barnes in the house, ready to nerd out and talk about all this awesome stuff he's got on shelves at the stores right now. I am so stoked to talk to him. I've been a big fan for a very long time. Rodney, man, how you doing tonight, bud?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, an absolute pleasure. Legit, like a lot of people, a couple years ago, that vampire comic Philadelphia kind of took us all by storm, right? We did not really know what to expect when that started, and 28 issues in now, you still, you
Yeah.
still you still shock us at every turn, man. You can't figure out where you're going to go. And as bloodthirsty as that series has been, it's even gotten more savage the last few issues. All these we got some key players that aren't coming back anytime soon now.
Lost some
It's,
people
it's
along
been
the
a
way.
it's been a crazy slaughter fest the last few issues. And and then the spin-off stuff. I know you're doing some things on your Substack as well, but like
Mhm.
the Nita Hawes Nightmare blog spin-off is the 12 issues of that, wrapping up that second arc. I don't think anybody was let down with that either. Does it ever get exhausting just blowing everybody's goddamn minds all the time? Like what's it like on that comic book throne?
Just writing books, man. I mean, I think I try to. My first reader is Jason Sean Alexander. He reads everything, so he gives it the taste test, and if he doesn't like it, I go back to the drawing board. So he's my constant reader, and if I can wow him, I typically put it out in the universe. But it's kind of cool. I mean, we've been having a pretty good time. It's hard work, but fun work.
And well, yeah, because you're doing this on top. You do a lot of TV and Hollywood stuff too, right? You
I
got
do. Yeah.
yeah, you got your fingers in some scripts on the silver screen and stuff. Is it ever hard to balance? Like doing all that and keeping up with the deadlines with these monthly comics.
Yeah, always. I mean, it's a I wake up to editors yelling at me every morning. That comes with the territory. Somebody's going to be pissed off this week. I just don't know who. But still it's a fun problem to have. I would
Yeah,
if you
I would think
told me
so.
when I was a kid that one day this would be my problem, I'd take it.
A good problem to have. Those I like those kinds of problems too. Now, just recently, a couple weeks ago, you have a new series dropping. Monarch #1 came out from Image,
Mhm,
and you're doing a little sci-fi action, little alien invasion story.
mhm.
Very much still your voice, your vibes. And I'm digging that in this new genre territory. Uh,
Thank you.
what a was it was it weird switching gears? I mean, you're doing so much horror, all the time, and to switch, was it easy to transition to sci-fi, or was it a couple hiccups maybe?
I mean, I look at it all as story. If I can find a human story under it, doesn't matter what genre it's in. I try to use comics, especially as an exercise. Like, I always try to practice writing and getting better and getting better. And with comics, because you're dealing with 20 pages primarily, it's a great way to be able to play with other ideas and other genre and other things. And so as long as I can find a human story under all of them, superheroes, horror, whatever it is, it's all sort of kind of the same thing. They're just doing different things, but the heart of the narrative is the same thing.
I like that because there is a lot of heart in your stories, and especially in your characters. All your characters seem so real, even if they are a dead president who's now an undead president, right? Like these bombastic out of this world characters, man. They still like their drive and their functions. Abigail Adams, like I love her. So like you love to hate her kind of, right? And then in a swift kick to the guts, right? You kind of like put everyone on the same side and then start killing people off, and so you make us like these characters more and then take them away. Like I definitely, when I read your stuff, I think of like that problem with writers, how you have to kill your darlings sometimes, right? Because I feel like you there's so much care and finesse and agency in Abigail, and how you brought her like from the beginning of the series to now, and that ruthlessness and the takeover, and then learning more about how she feels about her marriage and how she felt being alive in a time where women were just made to be small and unheard and invisible, and having to combat that. Like that was very real. It was very like touching and also sad too, because right now in this world, even with some of us that are on the left side of things, like we still live in a world where a lot of people are genders and races, and depending on what side of the tracks you came up on, right? Like the world still tries to silence you sometimes and make you feel small. So it was kind of interesting to see your commentary on that, about how this hundreds years long problem is still very much a problem, much just like racism, just like all these other things that America was built on, like we're still suffering through today. It was really cool to see you play with that in a very bloody, very violent, very modern vampire narrative.
Thank you. I mean, I always try to. The goal from the beginning was to try to humanize all of those ideas that you just mentioned. Generational trauma, patriarchy, all of that stuff. It's like if I can put it in the minds and hearts of beings that have been here from the beginning, then maybe we can put some perspective to it versus making it just like words in a textbook or something that feels like ancient history. To me, making it relatable and trying to find empathy and hoping that people can see themselves in these characters is always sort of the goal. And that's what we've been doing for. I just turned in the script to 30, so 30 issues so far. So we'll see how long we can keep going.
30 now is do you have an end game in sight, or I'm sure like how the overall tapestry is going to conclude, but like do you have like an issue count, or are you just like I'm gonna ride it till Image takes the air out of the tires? Like are you just like going to keep it going as long as you can?
I think it's one of those things. Jason and I have decided on a stopping point, but always leaving the door open for more. If just in case. I mean, I think right now we're in our fifth arc, our fifth story arc. It's a big surprise coming at the end of 30, which sort of resets everything. Something I don't think people see coming. But we probably, we'll probably end before 100, someplace in there. But in today's world, that's, people praise us now for going this long. Whereas
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, like the Hulk books and Thor books, they were in the 300s and 400s. It's like that was just a natural thing. But I guess with indie books, you sort of, end sooner, quicker.
Yeah, it's weird. Well, I mean, even in the big two now, we don't have these really long, drawn out runs for
No.
single creators anymore, man. It's like I sometimes make the joke that Marvel and DC don't think we can count past 12, right? It's they got to like reset it all the time, and I
Reset the whole
I get
world.
it.
Yeah. Reset the whole universe, not
Yeah,
just the
like
book, but yeah.
wipe the slate clean and start again. But in indie comics too, it's also a struggle, like it's mini series and maxi series. Right now, like Ninja Turtles from IDW is in the 130s, which is that's
Mhm,
pretty crazy, like that.
mhm,
Walking Dead, that's that we those are the examples we have now, when you before that we can look at like Spawn and Witchblade and Savage Dragon and stuff like, but these big long runs, they're just not a thing anymore. So yeah, to make it to 30, and then if you count like the spinoffs, right, you got 12 from Nita right now. I'm hoping, I looked in the solicits to see if like there was a solicit for 13, and there's not right now. Like I like it would, I like these spin-offs that you're doing in this universe. And I know you're doing you have two other projects on your Substack that tie into the Philadelphia universe?
Yeah, Johnny Gatlin is a cowboy, well, kind of a gunslinger in hell. He's managing, working for, of course, in our main demon and the four major demons of hell. He's got his story going, and then 20 Degrees Past Rigor is a zombie story that takes place in Flint, Michigan. And that's sort of working its way. All of them eventually will work their way towards uh, the idea of Philadelphia at some point. But for right now, they occupy their own spaces. But yeah, I mean, I like mixing and matching. Nita's going to fold into the Philadelphia world and the main Philadelphia book for a minute, because we've
Nice.
lost a lot of people,
Yeah.
along the way. So we gotta find some new stories to tell. But she'll play a really pivotal role, and I just actually introduced her and coming up. So it's a lot going on. It's a lot of moving pieces. For a moment, the book started to feel a little claustrophobic to me because there was so many uh, werewolves and
Hmm.
vampires and a witch and demons and a god and all of these different people. So I try sometimes to spread it out and thin out the herd so that it doesn't feel there's not a sameness to the book. I always want it to feel different. I want every issue to feel completely different than the one that preceded it.
Yeah, I would say you succeed in that by introducing some of those claustrophobic that you just mentioned elements, right? Like I remember when you first brought in the lichens through the Elysian Gardens, right? Like, and I
Mhm.
was like, holy shit. And like it was so good. And I love the way they're drawn and how just like how like raw and violent they all are. I think we need more werewolf literature. I think like vampires and zombies, and even witches to an extent, like they get all the glory, right? But
Yeah.
we're there's like a big missing piece of like good like in literature. So I was really happy that you brought them
Mhm.
in, and I was really happy they stayed and had such a big presence in this new fifth arc, right? Like they're not in the sub story anymore. Now they're in the fold. They're all fighting in the war. Um some of the art is like just how violent and grotesque everything is. One of my favorite movies is Dog Soldiers.
Mm.
And it's like I think it's the best probably one of the best werewolf movies ever made. All practical effects. They're done really well. I used to work. My first job was at Blockbuster, and you get like all these free rentals all the time, and after a while, you run out of shit to watch, right? And so
Right. Right.
when you're putting the movies back, you find you start grabbing weird shit, right? You're like, I mean, I'll try it, and that's how I stumbled across Dog Soldiers, and it's now turned into this like cult horror classic, and so like
Mm.
I've always like been I've been proud of myself for like knowing that was cool before everybody else knew it was cool. But that's what even your wolves look like, the wolves from Dog Soldiers, like they're very,
Yes.
very, very wolf in the face. And standing upright, very tall, menacing, the big hands and the claws, like it's very similar to how Jason like draws those and design those. And so I really that really sung to me, and I was just very excited that they stayed within the narrative. I fell behind, right? So like when we set up this interview, I knew I was like, well, I gotta catch up to Philadelphia. And then I was like, shit, I gotta catch up to Nita Hawes. And I was like, oh, I just got Blackula. I got her. I was like, oh my God, I just have read so much Rodney Barnes in the last week and a half, and absolutely no regrets, man. Like that was
Thank you.
that like if that was a literature class and it was homework, right? It's just I always call it podcast homework, right? like that was a joy. That homework was an absolute
Thank you.
joy. And I was reading it on my tablet, like at night in bed. Yeah, I like the, physical books and stuff too, but
Right.
horror comics is kind of nice to read digitally because you can have all the lights out and read on your
Mhm.
tablet, and it just adds kind of a different element. And so yeah, man, I remember like reading Nita Hawes, like when I would, because I've been having weird issues sleeping, maybe because I read horror comics all night. I don't know, but like I would like wake up and like go to the bathroom and get a glass of water, and like come back and then like lay down and be like, oh, I can't go back to sleep. And so I would start reading Nita Hawes, and then I got so wrapped up in it, it was like boom, I went through like the first trade like in a night at like
Wow.
4:30 in the morning, just like couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then like it's creepy, right? And that whole idea of like the paraplegic who's possessed by this demon, and like no one thinks that it can, that it's this musician because he can't get out of bed. And the art, like the tentacles and the like intestinal tracks with the spikes on them, and how they rip all these, like it was so gruesome and awesome and like just exciting to read. And I was like, man, like this is so good. And then you think about it and you're like, this is a spinoff to like, this is like a comic book spinoff, and sometimes those aren't that great, right? Also, sometimes they're not
Yeah.
written by the original creators. So that,
True.
this is
Yeah.
all your baby, and you're very like in it to win it and in control of everything. But yeah, man, when I read that, and then I found out like you were doing more stuff on Substack, and I was just like, oh my God, like I want this world to explode, right? I want like I want all the Philadelphia spinoffs. Like don't let it, like I'm like drag it out. So sometimes people are like, well, some things are better to end. It's like end it early, instead of go on too long. And like this, I'm just like, how can it can't go on too long? Like it just like go on forever. I need it. I want it all the time. It's so fun. And right now is a good time for vampires in comics. And you were kind of at the cusp of that. Like when shit was kind of starting to burn out, you came out with Philadelphia and these fucking vampire presidents, right? And flipped all our lids and blew us away. And since then, now in the last year, we've got Bloodstained Teeth. Jeff Lemire has his little monsters.
Mhm.
And so there, now you've sparked interest in other creatives to like go back to these vampire worlds, and these, and and I kind of see Philadelphia as the reason that's happening, is because you had this like fresh, stylistic, hyper violent, but also like very well done, great characterization, tons of social commentary, right? And fluid and elegant, right? And organic, and not beating anybody over the head with politics. They're just there where they need to be, and they make sense, and they make sense for the characters and the decisions they make. I am so impressed with your writing in that regard. And I mean, like, do you ever have to like, um, is it ever like tricky? Like, do you ever come off like, do you ever like check yourself and you're like, maybe we're coming on too strong here? Or like you said, like you've got Jason in your back corner double checking you, but just with everything going on in the world, and I mean, there's a scene where a guy in a MAGA hat gets his face ripped apart by a werewolf, right? And it's like you can't say anything more, and it's like it's a bigger panel too, right? And it's amazing, and I loved it. But you know, in today's world, when we're dealing with a whole different kind of clusterfuck and a whole different kind of hatred, and like
Mhm.
when you're kind of playing with that in your narrative, does it ever get tricky to keep that balance of like pacing and plot and commentary?
Only once. In issue 30, there's a very serious subject that bothered me when I was writing it, but it felt real. And in fact, before I said, this is the one to do, I sent it to everybody in the team. I sent it to, our PR people. I sent it to our editor. I sent it to Jason. I sent it to everybody. And I was like, should we do this? And because it is, it's a democracy. We're a team. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I write the books and Jason draws them, but still, you never want to be exploitative of anyone's feelings, or I try my best not to keep me out of the book. um, I try to allow the characters to not judge them, regardless of
Yeah.
whether you see them as good or bad. They see the world the way that they see the world, and they have their agendas based upon their wants and needs. So I try to keep me out of it. You don't know what my political beliefs are because I try to separate them. I will try to portray both sides of the coin in such a way that it's about their passions and what they feel. And like I said, just not me, because who wants to deal with the real world and not have escapism be escapism? Now, that said, I try to be layered in my storytelling. I try to bring meaning to the stories, and so that you feel a sense of connection and empathy with the characters. But never to a point of where I say someone is good or bad.
Mm.
It's more about the choices that they make in a moment, and they've got hundreds of years of perspective working for them in ways that we don't. So I try to imagine it from that place, not so much from we have an immediacy when we make decisions politically and socially as to what we feel and believe. They've seen everything. They've seen the consequences of everything. So there's a different kind of perspective that they have. And I try to place myself in their position to say, okay, not only was I a president, because it's very easy to make, like, you have some books where you have famous figures, Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Hunter, or this, that, other books. I never wanted to come from a place where I was just sort of exploiting the idea of a president and using him as a vampire. I wanted it to legitimately be part of, okay, I occupied this position at one time. I held this office, but and that's a perspective. When I was there, I saw the world this way. And John Adams never, from what history says, never owned slaves and was more liberal in his thinking. So I'm sure his perspective from then to now, having seen slavery as it was happening, slavery abolished, slavery, the Jim Crow laws, redlining, all this different stuff along the way. So
Hmm.
when he's looking at race relations, he's looking at it with a completely different brush. We read about it and experience it, but a lot of when we talk about history in the 1619 to now, it's mostly we're studying it. He experienced it. So whether that's Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, or some of the other characters, Abigail, Brittany, Toppy, whoever has gone through whatever entry point they have into the story, whatever part of history they came from, they're coming from a place of perspective. And that's one of the great powers of vampirism in my books, is you're not just powered with immortality or charged with immortality, you also have perspective. And so when you're dealing with human beings, it's almost like I've been to Africa on safari. Not safari. I've been on those safari trucks where you observe the animals, not
Hmm.
shooting or killing the animals. And when you see them go for a kill, they have a process. They have a way that they go about doing what they do. It's not just as simple as catching something. They lay in wait. They may lay all day. The big cats lay in the tall grass and they wait for things to come by, and they surround it and they do certain things. And I look at vampires, and it's a similar thing too. When you think about human beings being your prey, something that you know so well because you were one. So you have this idea of what a human being is personally. So you understand the fears, and you can exploit those fears to whether you're trying to make someone a vampire or um, whether you're trying to use them for survival because you need humans to be able to operate in the daytime. And I think Anne Rice did a great job with that as well. And I really love the Interview with the Vampire show on AMC. In fact, when I saw that show, it actually made me go back and look at the Philadelphia TV show completely differently because it has so much passion in it. And I think in today's world, you need that type of passion. The book has it. I wanted to make sure the TV show had it as well. And
Yeah.
I just think vampires are a really unique creature, and myth. And being able to exploit them in a modern way is fun.
Yeah, I've always been fascinated with them. One of my favorite college classes, I took a Gothic lit class in my undergrad, and
Mhm.
and it was so cool to look at like vampire literature, right? And then of course like Twilight was like huge because I'm going on 37 or I'm going on 38. Sorry, I'll be 38 in October. So like when I was in college, like these fucking this travesty to vampires was like all over all over the cinema, you know, and it's like
They
they
sparkle, man. What's
they
wrong with
sparkle
sparkling
in the
vampires?
goddamn
They
sunlight. It
sparkle,
makes
man. They sparkle.
like their one great weakness they took away and made it shameful still. Like I remember like that's because I showed that scene. I did a lecture for a class and I was talking about like Stoker and how, you know, how vampire myths began with like burial rites that, you know, from like the dawn of existence and all this shit, and like these like the old Slavic, the way they used to bury people, and the, you know, like away, like facing a certain way, or they might rise from the dead and all this crazy stuff. And I played that scene. You know, I had clips like ready from like vampire movies, and I played that scene where he's like, uh, he's like sparkling, and he's like, "Don't look at me," and she's like, "But you're beautiful," and I was like, "This is horse shit." And of course, like all the women in the class were like, "But there's no, it's the best love story ever," and I'm like, there are plenty of vampire love stories where the sunlight risk still can be a thing, you know. And but I just have always been really interested in them. Like mythology's crazy anyway, right? Like, you know, it's so crazy. There's like werewolves, the Loch Ness monster, the boogeyman, all these monsters, right, that are supposedly not real. And now I don't want to go like conspiracy theorist on you and try and tell you that I think these monsters are real, but it's just interesting to me that like stories from the time that civilization began, since people were able to write on clay tablets, and since language was devised, like these myths are there and repeat themselves in different cultures, right? And so it's interesting, you know, like I you know, like there's so many like alien sightings and stuff, and we look at this giant universe, you know, and so it's like it's all just for us. It's all like humanity is so special. It's like all this is just so like we can look up at night, and if we're not in an overpopulated city where we've polluted the sky, we can see the stars. You know, like it just it's. I think there's a lot more to like the world than we think it is, and but I just always kind of wondered, like, you know, like there is, what is the reason that these stories keep coming back, and not even coming back, like evolving and changing, like, you know, now like when we look at like modern vampirism, you know, it's like you mentioned, it's these characters you have to make real and give them real problems, give them marital issues, right, give them,
Mhm.
make them jealous, make them angry, right? Like what happens when these unhumanly creatures have base human emotions, right? And of course they're going to have them because they used to be human. And
Mhm.
again, that's when I go back to like Abigail, who just completely surprised me like every step of the way. And we, you know, we also always hear like historically like those the letters they wrote each other, you know, like people have
Mhm.
studied, and like they had this like great love for each other, you know, and all this stuff. And then to see you like rip that apart like, but in a good way, you know, you need conflict, or other your story's going to be bland without conflict like that. And so to have like there's this war breaking out in Philadelphia, and also like the Adamses break up in the middle of
Mhm.
it, like I was just like, that's so smart. Like it's like this normal human thing, because people fall out of love, people get angry, people cheat, people hurt each other, people break up. To add that cliche that cliche bit of humanity into this makes it, you know, makes it not a cliche at all. It makes the narrative do something totally new and totally fresh. And like again, like it's just like you're such a, I don't want to like kiss your ass too much, you know, but I mean you're just such a, you're such a good writer. And it
Thank
seems
you,
like
brother.
you're just very good at like bringing moments, like you're very in tune with like your humanness, right?
Mhm.
And very in tune with like, you know, culture, and you know, like you're not afraid to bring up like race issues, and you're just not afraid to like tell the story you want to tell. And I I think that's rare. And I'm not talking about cancel culture. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm thinking like, especially people that have been in the game for a while, like
Mhm.
the comic book game, and deal with deadlines. You know, I think sometimes, you know, stories maybe for an issue or two they check out, they got too many things going on at once. You know, there's like some dull moments, you know, and and I haven't seen any of those in the 28 issues of Philadelphia. I didn't see any of those in the 12 issues of Nita. 5 issues of Blackula, give me a fucking break, dude. I ate that shit for breakfast. That was so good. Like, and then after reading Monarch, like your new book, man, I like after finishing Monarch, I'm like I needed that issue 2 yesterday, and I'm just like I've just been waiting for it, and it's so like it's very cool to see, and I'm so glad you had the success you had, and you're big in the community too. Like people rallied around you. There's like a really great Philadelphia fan base online that they like lifted you. I mean, they basically turned you into a golden calf comic book writer, which I'm okay with it. Like let's party, let's get weird, right? But and I remember when they announced like they were going to remake Blade, and there was like the petition online to like get you to write the script for Marvel, and all of us were like so hoping that would like happen, but then it was like, this isn't. I mean, I guess it, that somehow the Snyder people made it happen, but like, Disney was like, that's cute, we're gonna do our own thing, but yeah, but now you're writing for Marvel too, right? You're
Yeah.
writing everybody's favorite father and son story. You've got the Mandalorian writing
Mhm.
the adaptation, which is also great.
Mhm.
It's cool to see. I wanted to ask you about this. So in an adaptation, right? So obviously, like the script's written,
Mhm.
you can't really be like, well, I think this would work better if he actually did this. They're like, well, no, it has to it has to do this. But the way you and your artist pick like viewpoints,
Mhm.
and what, because we get snippets, right? Because we get these, it's not a movie, it's not a series, so we get pieces, and the pieces that you guys decide to highlight,
Mhm.
what's your mentality on on scripting something like that, when you know the story and you even know the dialogue, but you have to like pick and choose what important bits to do where? Have you done like any adaptation work before? Was this like a new experience for you?
Well, I mean, anytime that I'm doing, I've done books, I've done movies, TV shows, things that have been based on other things. But I think in the case of Mando, it's more of really the hardest part is the plotting. It's not
Mm,
really writing in the traditional sense of it because there's a story that's already there. I'm trying to take an hour of quality television, incredibly quality television, and condense it to 30 pages, and still make it feel like it's a similar experience as the
mm,
one that you had on Disney Plus when you watch a show. And so it's always about trying to maintain the feeling and the pace, of what you saw. That's the work. It's
okay.
not so much a thing of like I said, in the other books, in the creator-owned books, and sometimes in the other spaces, it's about actually telling the story. Here, it's more of interpreting the story, but in a way that still feels organic to the original thing. It's a completely different thing. Like I just did a movie for Netflix based upon a book, Right Around Shining, and I really deviated. I might have used 3 things from the book that were scenes, but everything else I sort of made my own, which was a complete recreation. Whereas here, though, in Mando, it's virtually everything from the TV show, and it's
Mm,
just assembled in such a way that it still feels fresh and that you would wanna read it and hopefully, still consume it. It's like in the TV show that, I write and produce, Winning Time. Everybody knows what happened as far you can just Google who won, who lost, all of that. But
mhm.
hopefully along the way, there's a feeling that you get from going on that experience and seeing it, the process, and not necessarily the outcome. So, it's different in every instance, I guess is the long-winded answer.
Well, I do agree. Like, you are very good at pacing. You're very good at structure. You're very good at tension. Like those are some of your like some more of your natural wondrous writer capabilities that I've picked up, reading your stuff. But I mean, I can see how that could really help in an adaptation where like you want it to feel different enough that like people still want to pick up the comic even though they know the story, right? You're gonna control our experience and our venture through the plot differently than just watching it. And that's, and it helps that you have everybody's favorite alien and everybody's favorite father figure, to the, like people were going to buy that comic, whether or not you did a good job, and you did, because I read that, and I read volume 1 and really enjoyed it. And so are you like a big Star Wars nerd, or was it just like a job you kind of lucked out getting, and you were like, I'm not gonna fucking turn down Grogu? Like,
no, I'm a huge fan. It's evolved though. I'm not as much like when I was growing up. You had to wait 3 years to see another movie. Like you
right
saw
now we get like
New Hope
2 things a year.
Exactly. Well, you get the TV shows, plus you get the movies, and you got like for a minute you were like you got a lot of stuff, and with
Mm-hmm.
all the merchandising, you feel almost like it's around you. It's omnipresent. I'm not as much like I don't indulge in every single thing that comes out. I'm not doing like every single thing, but I do partake of some. Of course, I watch Mandalorian, and I haven't seen the what's the other one? The one that just came out. I heard was really good.
Book of Boba,
Andro.
the last one.
No, I haven't seen that either. The only of the TV shows I've seen is Mandalorian.
Okay.
Andor. I didn't see.
Oh, dude,
That. Yeah,
though that the
heard
hype
it
is
was great.
the hype is so real. That didn't feel like a Star Wars franchise until like you
Yeah.
actually hear them say like things that or see droids. But yeah, that was crazy. That felt like a sci-fi, just like a political thriller. But yeah, that was cool. But yeah, I feel you, man. Like at first it was cool, like we're oversaturated in like Marvel movies and now Star Wars movies, and that like they're just going crazy on these franchises and they're printing money. Like I get it, I know why they're doing it, but sometimes it gets to a point where like there is sometimes too much of a good thing. Like I don't go see Marvel. I used to go to see Marvel movies like Thursday at midnight, and
Right.
like go see a 2.5 hour movie at midnight, and then of course like you're all hyped up and can't go to sleep for a while, and then wake up early in the morning
Mhm.
and be all grumpy and go to work, right? But I was like cool with it. But now I am like I'm totally fine with waiting until they come on Disney Plus. Like that's how I saw the new Black Panther movie. That's all the last Disney movies, and I enjoy them still, but I don't really feel that urge to like spend $20 on a ticket and see them right away. Uh and I think it's just because there's so much of it all the time, like that wow factor is there when you watch it, but like that need for the next fix, right? To get that needle in your arm and just shoot up that MCU toxin, right? Like I just kind of lost a little bit of that. And like I said, when I like, dude, age like what the new Black Panther like blew me away, and I fucking ugly cried like 2 different times just because it was like so emotional. And then but it still, I just was like, I just kind of lost that need to like I have to see it right now. I have to see it before everybody else and know about it. And I'm like that. I love Star Wars too, but I'm like that with you. Like there's so much of it, and it's going to be there when I'm ready for it. And then
Mhm.
and then when I'm ready for it, there's going to be even more to catch up with, right? And
I
now
still
like with all the
appreciate it.
comics, yeah,
Yeah.
like so. But so that's cool. I mean, like I said, I'm glad we have it. Everybody needs a distraction. Like, if that's it's like faith, right? Like faith isn't for everybody, but for those who have it, it makes your life better, makes you,
Mhm.
deal with the lame shit. But like you do that. I'm not going to tell you what to believe. I'm not going to tell you what to watch and what not to watch. Like I'm glad that it's there. I'm glad we have these things. It's just I'm the same way. Like I never thought, when I remember when Force Awakens came out, and it was like we waited
Mhm.
all this time for a new Star Wars movie, and since then, like one movie a year and a series and all these Marvel comics, and it turns into like the CW shows, right? I almost said WB because that's how fucking
Yeah.
old I am. Like, but
Yeah.
it's the CW shows where it's like, oh, like I didn't watch last season. Oh, there's 25 1 hour episodes. I have to like find time to watch all these now, and that's a lot. Like
Yes.
if you have a day job even a moderate social life and a hobby, that's a lot to like catch up on a giant season like that. And that's kind of what's happening with like with Marvel and Star Wars and Star Trek now too. Like Star Trek on Paramount. There's like I'm still catching up on that. And I feel like every day I wake up and there's a new Star Trek series I gotta and I'm like, man, maybe one day. But yeah, like I'm still, like I struggle with, you know, trying to be like the comic book press and like deal with all the shit I buy that I never read, and then the free comics I get to like review and promote and all that. And it's like when I don't like I used to play video games a lot, and I'm not much of a gamer anymore, and it's because I'm more into reading now. But more often than not, like I like to read, and so I read a lot more than I watch movies or watch TV shows, and I do this too, right? So I got to do like I gotta interview fucking like rock star fucking comic book people, and then I gotta prep and get ready so that I impress you, so that you guys think I'm cool, and you tell your friends, and people keep coming on my show. They're like man, someone said that to me though the other day, Rodney. They referred someone to my show, and they were like, he actually reads your books, and I was like, what kind of fucking podcast host or anybody would like have a creator on the show and not read the books? And like several people are like, Blake, you'd be surprised.
Yeah, you'd be there. Some I can tell. Hey, maybe you should do a thing. You ever think about putting like George Washington or Thomas Jefferson in Philadelphia? That type of thing. So yeah.
Oh no, that spoiler alert. He did.
Yeah.
Which okay, that was also one of my. You had these. I keep coming back. I wanted to talk about Philadelphia, but I also wanted to make sure we talked about your other stuff. I will make sure that we know to get Monarch and Blackula that are available right now and totally worth your time. Like I will bring those up again. But you reminded me of another favorite part of Philadelphia I liked, where just like recently I mentioned in this now war, there's a fucking war in Philadelphia of vampires, humans, and of the dark and the light. Right. And I also love that. I love that like primordial. It's not heaven and hell. It's not angels and demons. It's darkness and light. And that's like the original dichotomy, right? Like you have like gone back to the very, very beginning, and anyway, again, I love that. But
and we don't know which side is the good side. We don't know which one is
good. Yeah, because they both don't seem that great.
They both have virtues. Yeah, but they have virtues and they have vices. But yeah, our heroes are on the dark side. So
yeah, and everybody's got like their own agenda too. Like like, oh, we'll work together, but like I'm still not your buddy. And it's like anybody could get backstabbed or have their throat slit or staked or have their head be decapitated at any time. But so before he started killing everybody in the recent issues, like right before that, it was like, oh, boom, these presidents. And then it was like, oh, Jefferson. And then, oh, George Washington. And so you like kept bringing in, and he brought in the fucking Illuminati. And it was like, oh my God. and so these little surprises that you give your readers. And one of my favorite things, because I love that the cherry tree was brought up, because that's what I remember as a kid. Like, he can't tell a lie. He was the best president ever. America's amazing. But I remember like the wooden teeth story, right? And I kept thinking, like, the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, what are we gonna hear about his wooden fucking teeth? Because like I feel like as he's a vampire and he's got real teeth and fangs, like I was like, this has to be addressed, and you did. You totally addressed it. And Jason drew it, was that an issue that might have been an issue that Jason did the layouts for?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't remember.
That was right on the cutoff of when he started. He's working on the omnibus for his older creator-owned series. Yeah. But yeah, when you guys brought that up, and when you mentioned like, and so I didn't know this, and like if it's true, like it fucking blew my mind. And I feel like with all the historical research you've done, it has to be like they weren't wood. He fucking had like the slaves that he owned. He had their teeth in his mouth. Yeah. Okay. I never learned that in fucking college. I owe hundreds of thousands of dollars for degrees. No one
Yeah.
ever fucking taught me that in grade school, high school, undergrad, or grad. No one ever taught me that shit. Same thing with the move bombing. When
Yeah.
that happens,
83.
I
Yeah.
googled that because I was like, I remembered hearing about the Africas, right? The
Mhm.
family, and I was like, man, and you're talking about Malcolm X, you're talking about all these things, and then they dropped that bomb from the police dropped that bomb from the helicopter, and I was like, did this happen? And I googled that, and I was like, holy fucking shit, that happened, dude. That the same thing when I watched the Watchmen show. The
Mhm.
Tulsa riots.
The
I
Tulsa
never learned like
race riots.
they don't teach us fucking shit, man. I was just feel like I was lied. Like and what teaches me an HBO series based on a comic and your Philadelphia vampire comic have taught me more about history in America than going to school forever. Like it was fucking crazy. So anyways, like
And
again,
Jupiter,
like
Jupiter was a real person. Jupiter, Thomas
oh really?
Jefferson's friend, he was a real person. He was
Wow.
his boy. He was his boy slave. That was his job, was to be Jefferson's friend.
Wow. I'm sorry, are you like a huge history nerd? Or did this just come from research of the
No,
comic?
over the years, same thing you just said. It's like over the years, I remember. You have a My memory kind of works in a weird way where I remember some things really clearly. And as a kid,
Mm,
there was this book when I was in the library, 7, 8 years old, called The Black Book. And it had all of these pictures and stories that were so detailed about history and things I'd never seen. Is very visceral. And my hometown, Annapolis, was a slave port. It's where Kunta Kinte landed from the book Roots. And
mm.
there's little statues and monuments at the dock of him. And it was so much history. I was surrounded by this colonial town. And, George Washington had been there. And at one time, it was the capital of the 13 colonies. And so I was always surrounded by this political thing. But under it, there was the truth. There's the part of the propaganda idea of the beauty of everything being pristine. And then under it, there was this other reality that walked with it. And I was always intrigued by that. So anytime I could find things that sort of spoke to, yeah, this happened, but also this and this happened too. I was drawn to that. So when I thought about this book, it's sort of it's funny how there are professors who teach it now.
Sick.
And
That's awesome.
I've spoken to some of their classes about history, and all I wanted to do was give history a voice. That was
Yeah.
really the goal from all of it, and I just needed a vehicle that could have time and space and emotion, and there was nothing better than a vampire. But, yeah, a lot of those things really happen, and usually what I do is I try to do at least for half or a third of the character is true, and then I go off into the mythology that Jason and I are creating. But, it's, I do research, I do due diligence in finding out things that are anecdotes from history and things, and I just try to put them, spin them, turn them on their heads.
Yeah, man. Well, you're doing a hell of a job of it. I can tell you that
Thank you.
much, man. It's such like I said, such a joy to read, and then a shock to read as well. And now I mentioned, so you've got now Zombie Love Studios,
Mhm,
your own kind of studio, that
mhm,
you released Blackula, the original graphic novel, um, which I feel like if you pitched that around and people told you no, like that's fucked because it was so good.
thank
But it was interesting to see you like drop this on an Amazon pre-order. Do it on with your own label. The trade is gorgeous. You guys did a great job printing it, like all that spot gloss, the extra thick pages, like
you. Mhm,
definitely like a book that I don't mind spending $20 on, like at all. Even
mhm,
even before I read it, right? I was just like, this is a nice book. And then the insides are fucking great, obviously.
mhm,
Um, but okay, so this was cool because I love Jason's art, but his
mhm,
art in Blackula is a little more of his like of his painting style, of his like
mhm,
gallery pieces. They're more photorealistic. You could tell he had a little bit of extra time to make
mhm.
these pages, maybe like the image deadline for Philadelphia wasn't weighing over him and stuff. And it felt like you guys had a little more time to curate this.
I'm gonna need a clip of that. I'm gonna need a clip of you saying that so I can send it to him. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll clip it. But I've been because he's the same. I've been trying to get. I always ask him if he wants to come on the show too. I'm always like, when he posts something, I'm like, oh, I love your art. Like, hey, come on the show.
Yes.
But I know, like everybody's so busy. But that's where you gotta like ask every now and then, not be annoying, right? But then eventually someone will say yes, and then that's how you get cool guests on a podcast. Also,
Yes.
you be really good at interviewing like me and actually read the books, and then crazy shit happens. But yeah, it was like the art in it is it stands up a little bit, and I love the way he's drawn and in the battle with Dracula. I love your comments on immortality and the mundaneness of being immortal was so good, right? And then also like fucking Count Dracula living in a trailer park like a modular home, like no glamour whatsoever. Like he's just like, and he's bored and he's over it. And he's just like, I love that. And I was like, man, that does kind of make sense because like, wealth, um, wealth doesn't last or wealth seems to last forever when you think of like humanity in the sense of like hundreds of years. But if you're alive for 1,000 years, like to stay wealthy for 1,000 years, that's gonna be really hard, even if you are immortal and ahead of the game. And I mean, I guess unless like he could have bought like Apple and Coca-Cola stock when it was nothing. If you really want to get like weird about it, but I just love that he's not living in this castle. He's
Mhm.
not. He doesn't seem like the horror royalty anymore. And then on the other side we've got Blackula, who's like escaped from hell, and he's on this path of vengeance to the being that turned him, and he's got this soul vision. Whereas Count Dracula has like no vision anymore, like he's kind of given up,
Yeah.
right? That was such a cool element to a wonderful original graphic novel, and I I I I've seen people post about it. I've seen people order the books and get it, right? I think a lot of people knew about it. I actually thought this was one of your Substack books initially,
Oh,
but it wasn't.
yeah.
This was something totally new. So like what made you want it like what made you want to develop Zombie Love Studios? Is it only for you? Are you ever going to open up submissions to other people, or is it just like for you and your vision? Like what's your kind of what was your goal and reasoning behind developing that?
Well, when you do TV and movies and comics, there's one thing that sort of connects all of them. I have to pitch to somebody. I have to go to somebody with an idea, and hopefully they say yes. I wanted to be able to have an idea, wake up, and just do it. There's a cost behind that, and there's a price that you pay. But um, there were stories that I love that I didn't necessarily see a home for, and I wanted to create a home for them.
Hmm.
There's a way I wanted to create books that you wanted to keep, that you wanted to put on your shelf like a library, that you wanted to feel like, excuse me, we're special. And in order to do that, you need to be able to invest in the best of the best. It's like the art has to be great, the story has to be great, the design of the book. Shout out to Mark Murphy. There's a lot that you have to put into it. The paper stock, as you said, all the elements of constructing a book. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just telling a great story with, good art or vice versa. Um, and so, I went back to the idea of Blackula, and it was something that I had loved as a kid. Blackula sort of hit me when I loved the Hammer films and I loved the Universal monsters as a kid. I had the models, I saw the late night creature features and all of that, but I never saw black people. I only saw maybe once in a while we would be a cab driver or the guy that pops in and says he went that way,
Mm.
but it was never really at the heart of the narrative or any place substantive within the narrative. So, when I saw Blackula as a kid, it moved me. It was the first time I'd been in that stereotypical idea of a movie theater where people are talking to the screen and throwing popcorn at the screen and communicate. It was an interactive experience, but I loved it because everybody was having this communal experience of seeing themselves kind of for the first time, but also in a movie that sort of held up for its time. It connected directly with the audience that it was aimed for. And as I got older and I would revisit it, I saw some of the more complicated issues that were with exploitation and the movie itself. And so I always said that if the fantasy was, if I ever had the opportunity to redo Blackula, I would extricate some of the problematic elements and highlight some of the things that I thought really, really worked well, and then try to speak to the modern idea of what storytelling is in layers that I thought that Blackula held. But it was another thing too. It's like when I saw Bela Lugosi play Dracula, he had sort of an elegance, to it. There was there was a way that he did this, and he talked to
Hmm.
women, and he was, he talked to Renfield, and he had a castle, and he was so cool. And William Marshall, the late great William Marshall, who played Prince Mamuwalde, aka Blackula, had a similar gravitas to me. And a lot of the actors who were in blaxploitation were making the best of what they had to work with, and were really, really talented actors. And so my thing was, if William Marshall was still here today, it's sort of an homage to him as well, to create something that I felt he would appreciate, the language, how he spoke, as eloquent as he could be. Um, so yeah, that was it.
Yeah, is it public domain now, or did you have to like pay to
No,
use the rights?
I had to go to MGM and
Beg.
yeah, and so I had to go and get the rights and
Wow.
all of that and go through the legal process, all of that. So, yeah, but it
Well,
wasn't
well worth it. I mean, I'm sure that wasn't fun. Like that sounds
it was
that
well,
sounds like a lot of paperwork.
I had some help.
Nice.
A lot of mail from Orion helped cut through some of the red tape and get to the powers that be, and so it wasn't as complicated as it may have been if I was just coming in off the street.
Okay.
So I had a lot of folks that helped with the process.
Nice. Now, how is this like, sales numbers and stuff? Like, how is it doing with like your vision? Like, is it doing as well as you? Well, I mean, obviously, as a writer, you always want more book sales, right? But like, are,
Mhm.
are you feeling good about it? Like through the, since it didn't get since the release wasn't like traditional, because it was through your own kind of publishing imprint. Like, are you feeling okay about it?
Well, there was a traditional did come out on a Wednesday at the comic book shop, so there
Oh, it
was
did.
that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. For the stores that ordered it. We don't know the numbers yet because Amazon is in control of the numbers. At some point, they'll tell
Hmm.
us, or Diamond will tell us, what we do or don't have, what we've sold. I mean, and once, hopefully, Lord willing, we'll sell the first print and be able to do a second print. But regardless, still very proud of this endeavor. It was a worthy endeavor, and Lord willing, I'll do a volume 2 and a volume 3.
Oh, dude, I hope you do, and because it really was great. Because I mean, I know the character, but I wasn't like incredibly familiar with it. And I loved your short essay in the beginning, how you talk about like your mom dating and how you kind of got wrapped up into that, and it was like, oh, you can take me out, but
Yeah,
Rodney's, you gotta
Brad is coming.
you gotta you
Yeah,
gotta you gotta win my
yeah,
son over too,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and how you used your mom's dating life to like get you into this theater that you've been dreaming. I was like, man, like the cosmos aligned, right? Like it's very rare that happens for people, and now, like, because of that experience, and like that changed how you are as a writer. I feel like, like all these decades later, and like that's still so important to you, and you're writing one of the best vampire narratives of our time, and and now you're writing another vampire narrative that's equally great. Are you is it Does it just feel like it's in the same universe because it's you and Jason? But or like, is it like, could that tie? Is there a way that you could tie that into Phil? Like, have you thought about that? Like, or like to kind of like to bring him into the war, and have,
Um, I've heard it a lot. I
yeah.
hear it a lot, and people ask me the question a lot. Um, I wanted Blackula to feel different than Philadelphia, even though the art is different. I mean, even though the art we're the same, Jason and I, the same team. I wanted it to feel separate. Um, is there a space where they could exist? I'm sure after the events of issue 30, who knows what could happen?
Man,
Like
that's
I said, the whole everything changes. So it's who knows what could happen. I can't give it away, but
yeah.
people do seem to want those two worlds to intersect. If I can find a story that I feel is worthy, because the thing with Philadelphia is a lot emotionally goes into writing Philadelphia. I have to
Hmm.
feel a way. There's an emotion thematically. Like some of the stories sometimes are. I find a theme, and usually it's anger, or it's humility, or it's guilt, whatever it is. And I got to go there in order to be able to write to it so that I feel it. I got to
Yeah.
feel it. And then I hope you guys feel it when you read it. So I got to find that for this. I got to figure out a way to sort of inject that into it as well. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and because I love the way it ends because even if you never went back to it, which I feel like with the love and passion you have for him, you need to because I don't think you're done with it. But
No, not
the way that original graphic novel it ends well, right? It's like it ends with like a new beginning. A glimmer of like hope in the darkness. There's a means to go on, but just in case if nothing ever happened, it works well as like the five issues that are collected in that OGN. But
Mhm.
at the same time, when you finish reading it, you're like, okay, like maybe something else could happen, like or he could almost be like a superhero. Like, you could take it into a whole bunch of different ways. That of course, like I'm not going to tell Rodney Barnes how to write or what he should write, but I just see there's a lot of very cool places you could take that narrative elsewhere. Um, and so, are you planning on like what else are you, I mean, obviously you probably can't announce projects obviously and stuff, but like what else are you kind of wanting to do with this imprint? Are you like is it just going to be like written stuff like prose or graphic novels or like or you could be like a film or something, like is Zombie Love Studios, like is it open to the medium, or are you going to kind of try and keep it focused?
Well, our next book is Florence and Normandy, written, well, story by myself and the rapper actor exhibit. And then we have a ghost story, Crownsville, that's coming, and then we have a serial killer story set in the 1920s, The Butcher of Black
Cool.
Bottom, that started on my Substack. And then we have a big book with a celebrity whose name I can't say out loud right now, but that I'm also doing a Blade Runner esque, future esque dystopian thing. So that's coming from the book side of Zombie Love. As far as adaptations, yeah, they'll probably be if studios and networks are interested in the material. Certainly, I'd love to be able to expand, and there've been some of those conversations along the way, but nothing I can say out loud because it's not formal
Yeah.
or finished. But yeah, I mean, there is no better. I'm a writer, so whether I'm writing a movie or a TV show or a comic, there's still the desire to write. So as whatever the medium is, one of my heroes is the late great Richard Matheson, who I believe his birthday is either today or yesterday. And he wrote Twilight Zone episodes. He wrote the Night Stalker movies of the week. He wrote I Am Legend. Somewhere in Time / What Dreams May Come. Wrote so many different types of things. He was sort of Stephen King before Stephen King. And I always wanted to be that kind of writer. And one of the reasons why I write different things is so that you don't get pigeonholed into saying, okay, well, yeah, you can write vampires, but can you write this? Can you write
Yeah.
that? Can you do this? Can you do that? And I always wanted to be, show some dexterity and sort of be a Renaissance man when it came to the types of stories that I wrote. So yeah, all of that to say, Zombie Love, Lord willing, will be able to cross some mediums into some things, and knock on wood, we'll see.
Very cool, man. Yeah, I mean, even even though I asked if Blackula was going to bleed into Philadelphia, it does feel like its own. And like I said, it's easy to say that because of Jason's art, just because
Mhm.
like it just feels, yeah, but it is it is different. It's oh it's like on a different kind of emotional level, right? Like in
Mhm.
Philadelphia we've got like, we've got people, the new loves blossoming, people falling out of love. That I love the father son story, that you just break our fucking hearts. Oh my god. I'm really close with my dad, so that was, and my dad's getting older, right? And so like that was a lot to kind of I was like whoo, like I was wasn't I wasn't prepared for you to like fucking wring my heart out in the last few issues like you did. But it was great. It was great, and I wouldn't change it. Like everything happens how it should and how it needs to, and how to push the plot.
Thank you.
And so, but yeah, so Blackula felt very different. It was, the pacing was a little slower, but also you're coming from like all out war to like kind of a more intimate revenge setting in Blackula, which I dug. And then yeah, like I said, Jason having a little bit of extra time to really lay into those panels. I really appreciated. It was just like it was just gnarly, man. He's so talented, and the two of you guys get together and make magic. And I love that for Nita, like he helps you well, I mean, he obviously helps you with the story in various aspects. He's not like just the artist, like waiting for your beck and call to direct him what to do. Like you guys have a great working relationship and
Yeah,
build off each other.
I just hand him a script.
Yeah,
I very rarely direct. There's some things where I say, a splash page or something like that needs to be a particular thing, but more often than not, I just hand him a script and let him go, and he just goes.
nice. Yeah, I I love his stuff, and it was, people that see his artwork, it just like everybody's just so like enraptured by it, right? It just like
Mhm.
it really takes you, and it's like even when it's like scary and horrific and grotesque, it's just you can't help but, it's like a train wreck, right? You just got to
Mhm.
stare at it. You can't look away, and then you're kind of
Mhm.
changed by it simultaneously. So yeah, it's but I was really stoked. Like in Nita, initially I was like, oh, he's not doing the art, but he's like, yeah, like you're both still telling the story, and I think that's another reason why that story was so rich. And like those 12 issues, that the volume 2 comes out in April.
Mhm.
If you want to wait for the trade, or you could get volume 1 and buy the next 6 issues, right now. And it's excellent, man. Like a lot of time, like I said, like in spin-off territory, we don't always get that lucky.
Mhm.
And you guys kept it 12 out of 10, like all the way through, like just absolutely like enhancing this world that you guys have already built, that's ruined by the undead and the dark and the light, and the mythos that you expanded upon and built. Your guys are really fucking good at world building. Like
Thank
it's
you.
this world we know, but not at all, right? It's like it's totally different. And now you've done it again, with Monarch, your brand new Image book, except instead of vampires ruining everybody's day, it's the foster system and and fucking aliens. And like
Yes.
again, like it's been a while that I've read a premiere issue that hit all those beats so perfectly, that ended in such a, like, what a fucking cliffhanger. I won't spoil it for people. It's pretty new, so I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but like anybody who reads this issue and is like, I don't really need number 2, like call your fucking doctor because you need some help. There's no way that you can read that number 1 issue and not just like be waiting at the comic book shop, like people wait, like people camp outside for fucking sneakers, man. Like I cannot wait to get the second issue and see more of these alien creatures. I love the Independence Day nod, like the way the UFO like enters into the atmosphere and the cloud, and then the big, like. But again, like it's just a nod, and you very much like put your own spin on it, and again, like on top of this outrageous alien invasion narrative, there's this intimate, sad emotional story of foster kids that, you know, one of them got a little bit lucky and one of them got was forgotten about, right? And
Mhm.
grew up alone and on the streets and didn't have anyone to look up to, and the pain of that. And you mentioned that that's like an ongoing element in that first issue is that pain and what pain does to you, and how pain makes you, how it makes you feel, makes you think, and it influences your decision making and how you live your life. And that was so, all of this in 22 fucking pages, ladies and gentlemen. Like it's crazy. But yeah, and just a really great issue. I read some of the reviews. It seems like it's getting reviewed well. It seems like people are digging it. Um, were you like you've mentioned like also doing like a Blade Runner esque tale, which is like after this, man. Like I love your horror writing, but dude, like I'm never gonna be mad at you if you fucking write sci-fi. Like you're really good with genre fiction, man.
Thank you.
And that's why it's these hardcore emotional beats and the real humanness you implant within the narrative. I've always said that's what makes great horror, right? Is like horror needs to make you laugh, cry, it needs to make you hungry, horny. It has to play with all your feelings as a human, right? And then that's how it scares you, right?
Mhm.
It gets you comfy in the things that you know, and then startles you with the unknown, with that with whatever monster or demon or serial killer or whatever comes at you. And you do that really well. And that's, you know, sci-fi does that as well. You know, like you have to remind people what it is to be human, and then you have to remind them of like the true alienness of an outer world experience, right? And that's, again, like you just do these things naturally. And as someone who like was in an MFA program and wanted to be a writer, I'm so like impressed and aggravated by you because you make it seem so easy, which I know it's like, I feel like it's not like you know, I feel like when you deal with these high emotional pieces, and like you said, like when you deal with, when you think about grief or you think about envy or revenge and jealousy, you know, like you have to put yourself in those moments, you know, like that gets taxing, right? Like
Mhm.
the people are always like, well, the artist and the art is different, but yeah, but you still, sometimes you got to go into those dark places
Mhm.
to pull out the brightness, right? And you know, some people go too far into it, some people don't go far enough. You know, you found this like really good median of like how deep you need to go, like beneath the skin, you know, floating around the organs, that like innate humanness in all of us, you bring that out into these crazy scenarios, and they work so well. um how you how how are you feeling on your premiere of Monarch? Like, are you feeling pretty good?
Yeah, I'm feeling great. I mean, I think again, all of them, like when you speak about Nita and Monarch and Blackula, it's like, you know, the most, one of the satisfying elements is people seem to really enjoy it. And, you know, across the board, for the most part, there's an appreciation for the work, which makes the work a little easier,
Yeah,
because it's a lot of it. And when you have to sacrifice time, you know, just for yourself, and then I'm constantly at this desk writing, and the times where you don't feel like you want to do it and those types of things. But when you can look at how it makes people feel and how people connect to it, and like I said, you right now, we should take this interview and send it to my therapist, so she can play it back to me. um, it makes the work worthwhile. You know, it's like, I don't think anybody makes comics just for money.
yeah,
We all, because there's not a whole lot of money in it,
yeah,
but we do it because we love it, and we talk about it because we love it. And part of the beauty of this is being part of a community of folks that sort of dig fantasy, whether it's horror, sci-fi, whatever it is, superheroes. And just being a part of that still takes me back to being a kid when I traded comic books with my friends, and we got in fights over Avengers 100, Barry Windsor Smith's one, and I really, really wanted it, and you know, whatever the book may be. And so, yeah, I feel good about Monarch. I feel good about all the books that come because I know I put my heart into them. And you could never, you know, and Jason always tells me this, yeah, you could never really know how a book is going to connect with people or not connect with people.
yeah,
Um, you just put it out and you hope for the best. It's like a a bowling ball. You leave your hand and you hope it doesn't go in a gutter. But I typically across my career, whenever I put 100% into something, it has resonated with the people that I figured it would resonate with because it's coming from my heart. And the more I write from my heart, the more satisfied I am with the outcome. When I write with my head, I can be, it'll be quality work, but it still won't resonate in the same way it does when I'm emotionally connected to the work. So I try my best, as a practice to operate from a place of how does this make me feel? What are the
Nice.
moments within this that make me feel something? So hopefully you feel the same thing.
Well, on that note, I do think you're succeeding. Like obviously, I don't think I could say it enough, but yeah, like a lot of your stuff really resonated with me. Like I said, like thinking about my dad and getting older and like and losing my dad, which I may not have lost him in a vampire war, or I may not. I don't think I'm going to lose him in a vampire war in the streets of Philadelphia. I don't know what can happen. I can't tell the future, right? But he is. We're both getting older, and things are different, and it's just it like you made me think about that in a way that like made me uncomfortable, but also was to and was made me happy that I have a good relationship with him, because there's so many
Hopefully
a lot of people don't with their
the
parents and
goal is
stuff,
to
and
be the goal is to make you feel grateful,
yeah.
you know, for what you have. And
Well,
that's
you're doing it, bud. And what's it like? I know I kept you for a while now. One more quick question is it weird not working with Jason on the new series? Like, because you've done. I know you've had some guest artists on Philadelphia at times, but like this with Monarch, we got a new art team. You're dealing with different people. Like, was there ever a moment where you were like, uh I mean, obviously you guys can't work on everything together, nor would I like. I want you guys to do different stuff with different people too. But was
Mhm.
it just you guys have done so much together over the last couple of years? Was it kind of weird to like switch gears with a new team, or were you like, finally, I need a
No,
break from this dude?
well, I always need a break from Jason. Jason is annoying. But it, everything sort of runs through Zombie Love as a idea. So we sort of run it all the same. And Jason is the art director for Zombie Love Studios. So every artist he picks,
Oh wow.
he picks the artist for Nita, for Johnny Gatlin, for everything. Florence and Normandy. I don't know these people. These just says he's like, I think this person would be great for this book. And I go, okay. I've never ever shot him down or said no because his taste, he's an elitist, so that has worked for me and for him. And I think as long as I can nail the story, I'm comfortable in the fact that the people that he's choosing and guiding are going to execute it with the same heart and that I'm hopefully am putting into it. And so far, 100 for 100. So I'm a fortunate guy.
Yeah, it's so it's Alex Lynn's, and you've worked with Luis.
Alex is doing a great job. Yeah.
Like
Luis has
you've
done
done work with him before.
Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Luis has done Nita. Luis has done some of the Substack books. Luis has done virtually everything that we've done. So Luis has been there from the beginning. And
But
Marshall
Monarch is
Diller,
brighter. It's
yeah,
a lot more. It's like bright and vivid
yeah,
and neon
yeah,
at times with the
yeah.
laser blasts in the sky.
Mar Silvestri, I think, is doing the colors on this. But yeah, wanted a different tone and a different feel. That's the same thing
Nice.
with wanting a different look, that you don't want it all to feel that grayness. Blackula is a very gray, dark book because it's mostly at night and,
Mhm.
it's in graveyards and all of that kind of stuff. But sci-fi, you want it to be galaxies, planets, nebulas and different stuff. You want it to feel like a different kind of feeling. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted it to feel more like War of the Worlds. So that's um that's sort of the thing I wanted mostly in the daytime.
Nice. Yeah, it's like I said, man. I need that second issue bad. I gotta.
It's
I
coming.
need to know. I need
It's
to know what
surprises.
happened.
It's surprises coming. It's not what you think it is. It's not what you think it is.
I'm almost scared like issue 2 is gonna be like a flashback backstory, and then like issue 3 is gonna bring us back to like what happens. But that could also work too. But like I just there's again like everybody, if you're listening to this, if you haven't picked up Monarch, like you need to get it. Like please get it. It's so good. Blackula is available right now. You got 28 issues of Philadelphia to read. You got a brand new beautiful fucking hardcover out. Like you got that sexy image hardcover treatment, which I'm like that book looks gorgeous. I am just so glad that like that you just continue to have the success you're having because I feel like you work really hard. You treat your fans really well. You treat the comic book community really well, and you deserve it, dude. Like you. It's great to see hard work pay off and see the good ones succeed and now like you're doing Mando at Marvel and I hope you keep your foot in the door there, man. Like I hope
Always.
they give
Yeah,
you other
yeah.
opportunities to do
Always.
some fun stuff
They
there.
are. They always do. I mean, Falcon was my first comic there, and I've done a Cloak and Dagger story, and like I say, they're always coming with things here and there, So yeah, and I may be going to another company that you've heard of as well, doing a big thing. So who
Nice.
knows? So it's always stuff happening, man.
Always something. Well, Rodney, I've kept you for a while, man. This was, like I said, this is so great. Like, thank you so much for giving me a shot, giving me
Thank
your
you.
time. I so appreciate it.
Oh,
Real quick, just let everybody know, like, where's the best place to keep track of you? I know you got your socials and your Substack, and then you got the Zombie Love Studios. You want to give a shout out to where we follow you and keep track of all that stuff?
Instagram and Twitter is at the Rodney Barnes. Zombie Love LLC for Twitter and for Instagram as well. There's rodneybarnes.substack.com for my Substack stuff. There's zombielovestudios.com for the website. That's probably about it. If you need to get more, then you're probably a bill collector, and I don't want you to find so that's enough. That's enough for you. If there's anything past there, I don't want you to know. But
Yeah. You still got to keep some secrets.
yeah,
Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Rodney, again, thank you for coming on the show. This was
thank you,
so
Blake.
great. Seriously, you guys got to pick up Blackula and Monarch and get like if you're like me and you fell behind on Philadelphia, you got to catch the fuck up, babies. And Nita Haas Nightmare blog, like, ooh, it was so good. And we just mentioned like you can get volume 1 and the backup issues, or you can wait till April. The new trade comes out in April from Image. I'm just I'm so excited. I'm so excited. This was so cool, man. Like, thank you, Rodney, so much, dude. This was a huge pleasure. So excited for my audience to listen to this, and again, wish you the absolute best of luck in the future, dude.
Thank you, brother. I'll nudge Jason for you and try to get him on here for you.
Thanks, man. All right, I'm gonna end this, and then I need you to hang around for like 1 second.